Good morning, everybody. We will begin in just a few minutes here on Career Live for LinkedIn and YouTube. Good morning, everybody. I'm John Self. Welcome to Career Live here at johnself.com and Guiding Your Career Academy. I'm delighted to be with you today. We are in Dallas, Texas, hot Texas, about 120, about an hour and 20 minutes east of Dallas. And Dallas is a city I lived in for, more than 15 years when I was doing all my travel for recruiting. And I can tell you with great joy that I've only been to DFW once or twice since 2017 versus 5 times a month or more sometimes. So I'm glad to be with you. I'm glad to talk to you today about some really interesting stuff we're working on here and then answer questions. And boy, we've got some great questions that have come in today. If you have questions, please add them into your chat. And I want to welcome Kathleen Forbes, Dr. Forbes, who is an outstanding physician executive with extensive operations experience. She's joining us today, and she's always a joy to be with. Thank you for joining us. We have some other people joining us on YouTube, and we're continuing to work to build our audience. And the cool thing is this is taped and will be replayed on our YouTube channel at a later date. Today, we are unveiling our new Your Career Community package. It's something I've been working on for a long time. And here's what's going on. With the rise in AI, and it's going to be its use today is spreading pretty rapidly, but let me say this, within 5 to 7 years, it will dominate so many aspects of our lives. And when I say dominate, it'll be very prevalent. That's probably a better word. And for people like me who are in the information business, we have to find different ways to connect with people. So we're unveiling today a new approach to how we will provide career coaching and career coaching services. And it's called Your Career Community. Now, there are going to be people who still want to have the old way of doing things, and that's fine. And there will be a big price for that because it takes a lot of time. But the Career Community is designed to provide these services at a much lower cost and provide interaction with the members and still have live access to me on a regular basis. You're going to get access to the best-in-class career and job search coaching with incredible savings on other comparable other comparable products. I was looking at one of my competitors, and very talented person, extraordinarily talented, extremely successful. And her cheapest package is $199 a month, and her coaching is email. And I'm not sure how that works, but anyway, we're not going to be doing it exactly that way. Our price is not yet firmly set, but it'll be less than $79 a month. And all of our existing clients and clients that have been with us over the last year will have one year membership free. And it's called Your Career Community. And we were trying to get it all rolled out. And the concept is now firm. We met our deadline there. Talking to you about it today, but gosh, there are still some logistics issues with the online courses that we got to go back in and make a few changes. So we hope to be able to wrap that up in the next 2 weeks and roll it out. But I am really excited about it because it democratizes the pricing process. And our existing clients continue to get the same service they're getting. And we've always been a little bit different than some coaches, especially the big firms. When you finish your contract or your subscription with us, we stay with you until you place. And the same thing will apply in Your Career Community. And again, it's going to have weekly office hours, monthly webinars. And I just recorded yesterday the first webinar with T.D. Smyers, a former Navy captain who is now an outstanding career executive coach. And he helps executives in transitions, starting new jobs, who are trying to then fit into their new employment. A wonderful guy. I've known TD for a long time. He was an extraordinary naval aviator, a graduate of Annapolis. He's from Boyd, Texas. He always kind of downgrades his academic credentials. His major at Annapolis was physics. But he doesn't sound like a physicist. Anyway, he's a great guy. I think you're going to enjoy the interview, and we're working on that to get that ready to go up into the first month of Your Career Community. And I really am excited because I think building a community is kind of the way of the future. Getting information, just exchanging information, that's going to be done more efficiently and cheaply with AI. And we're certainly going to adopt some AI programs to facilitate packaging of information. But we are still we're using Your Career Community to build the interaction with people, which I think that is so extremely important. For example, right now in our unbundled courses, if you want to buy Mastering the Art of the Job Interview, it's $129 for part 1, $129 for part 2. And under our new plan, it will be free. The mock interview, it's $149. That one will have a small price tag because it is time intensive for me. It'll be less than $100. A lot of the free downloads will be there. We'll be bringing back some of our other courses that were free, and we'll be repackaging those. So there's going to be quite a portfolio of free education, including what to do if you lose your job, and that'll be updated because the economy looks good, but the economic indicators looking forward are not good. And so again, who knows what's going to happen? Just be prepared. We're also creating a new, we're also going to be offering a new strategic planning version of that. And I'll be working with existing clients to help put theirs together as part of their existing package. But the new plan will have a fee associated because, again, it's a very intensive part of my time. Mastering the art of strategic networking is currently $149. That will be free. Business a resume review, that will be $24.95 because that it requires some time and not just online. Overcoming age discrimination, that will be a free download. Managing your career through unexpected events will be a free download. What to do if you're laid off will be a free download. Live one-on-one coaching will be available at a substantial discount. A 50% off of what non-members will pay. Monthly webinars will be a part of the package, and we're going to have some great guests. We may make those available to a lot of different people at first, but we're going to then tighten that up. A.V. Fishman, good morning. It's good to have you with us. And we're talking about the new YourCareer Community plan. And so there's going to be so much free content. There will be a few isolated programs that there will be small payments that will be required, and we'll have all of that ready to go probably next week. It's just a matter of getting it all plugged in to our LMS platform. LMS is basically the platform in Vancouver with Thinkific, and they host all of our programs. They will play a significant role in YourCareer Community, and they handle all of our billing and all of our back office. So, a very great company, very, very reliable company in Vancouver, Washington. We're glad to have you. So that's what I've been working on. Somebody said, "How was your Labor Day?" And I said, "I labored." But this business and working with people who want to advance their careers and who are in career transition or trying to find that next better job is absolutely a joy. It's a labor of love. I love my 27 years of executive recruiting. I didn't love the travel toward the end. That became a bit much. But keep in mind, I started traveling in the mid 70s. So, it was time to stop traveling. And I did some searches virtually during the pandemic, but I really, that has its place. And some of the interviews can be done on virtual, but I'm still one of those across the table, shake hands kind of people. I think that's where you get a true sense of people's abilities and their personality. And that's what's really, really helpful. So anyway, also we are scheduled to publish this next year. They will be available on Amazon. It's 4 ebooks, beginning with managing your career. And the first book coming out will be a off the grid networking book. And then we'll be Your Career Management. We'll have another book. If you buy it on Amazon, there's an ebook price. If you are a member of Your Career Community, those will be free for download. So I'm glad to have all of you here today. We're building the morning crowd, and so we kind of promote it as having coffee. So please take a sip. I've got my coffee and my water bottle, and so I'm ready to go. We've had some great questions that have come in, and every week you see some of the same questions. So if you have questions today, drop them in the chat. I love to answer them specifically. If you want it to be confidential, just say confidential, so we won't talk about who's submitting the question. So we're glad to have you, and you've kind of got a good handle now, or sort of an overview of where we are with your career community. If you haven't seen this morning's video, we've kind of shifted our schedule. We were doing every day, and every day was becoming, because we were trying to get it better and better and better, every day became more and more of a challenge. And so what we're doing now is 3 days a week, 2 subject matter posts. We may repeat one from the past, and then on Friday we do funny photos and quotes. So that's kind of our video publishing schedule. This morning was about job myths and how a job myth can get started and can absolutely derail people's careers. Because what makes a myth so incredibly challenging is that it sounds so real. And there's certain myths that we're almost born with. It's almost like they're imprinted in our brains. And that is, if I work hard and I really keep my head down and I really am loyal to the company and I'm active in my association and I produce great results, that'll be enough to ensure that I have a successful career. Well, in the old days, it probably was going to be enough, but not anymore. And the problem is, there's so much consolidation in industries like retail, healthcare, communications, and others. And so there are fewer management jobs. Secondly, if you look at the job numbers now, it all talks about how many jobs are available, 8 million jobs available. Most of those are in lower paying service sector industries. And they're not bad jobs. They're essential jobs, but they're not management executive level jobs. If you're looking for a job now, and I know several people who are, you're going to realize that it's extremely competitive, and it's becoming more competitive. And here's why. And I think there's a question about this today, so we may repeat something. In the old days, you heard about a job and you might apply for it. And even if you applied online, it was online, but it was sort of a manual process. And you had internal recruiters. Internal recruiters loathe to get on the telephone and source candidates. Now, if you're applying for a job, that makes you a positive or an active candidate. But if you're sitting in your office and suddenly you get a phone call from somebody and said, hey, we heard about you and we would like for you to consider applying. Well, tell me about it. And if you think about it and say, okay, I'll apply. You were a passive candidate. You were not actively in the market until somebody came out and called you. So it was a very manual process. Now, that manual is gone, excuse me, and it's now machine automation. And so in a matter of minutes, scanners can review thousands of LinkedIn profiles. So instead of the average odds online of being about 150 to 1, they could be 500 to 1 or 2,000 to 1 or 3,000 to 1, depending on the quality of the job. And so that's not the best way to look for a job, and you need to build your network. And the people who have good networks and use those networks and have kept those networks active are tend to place faster than those who are forced to rely on online. So consider your network. If you're not networking every week or every month, do that. It's crazy not to. Be sure that your networking is tied to your career plan. If you don't have a career plan, what you have is a career dream. You've got to write it down and you've got to decide the steps. You wouldn't run a business without a plan, and nor would you want to run a business or take a vacation and just show up at the airport with your family and say, well, no problem. Here we go. I'm happy to. We're off to the races, and we are don't know where we're going, but sell us a ticket. Well, that's kind of what you're doing if you don't have a career plan. So you start at the end and back it down, and I'll list all the steps in between. And people say, oh, that's a lot of work, and it's going to change. So why do it? Really? Do you think GE thinks, gosh, let's don't do a strategic plan because it's probably going to change? Hell yes, it's going to change. And that's part of being the CEO of you. You've got to get a plan, keep the plan updated, and then tie your networking to that plan. Where do you want to be? What kind of organization do you want to work with? Some people say, but I want to stay where I am. I'm happy. I don't aspire to have greater things. I want to be here. What happens if you get laid off? What's next if you get laid off? What if you're in a secondary market city and there are no other jobs of comparable pay and scope of service or responsibility in your community? You're going to have to move. Where are you going to move to? What organizations have you targeted to think about? What relationships have you built? If you depend on online applications, it will be the most killing, bone-crushing, moral disaster for the time that you're going through it. Why? Terrible odds and tons of rejection. And again, the average odds are 150 to 1. Even with a recruiter, if you're recruited or referred, it's only the best odds are 16 to 1. So, and gosh, none of us would go to a racetrack and bet on a horse at 16 to 1. So you have to have a network. You have to have a network that's targeted, and you have to have a career plan. And gosh, I kind of wandered off here, but career planning, somebody said, without a career plan, it's a dream. And careers, go to die in dreams. Dreams are, not always realized. And so if you have a plan, put it down on paper and then measure your performance each year. And if your goal is to stay in a community, then what are you doing to make yourself indispensable for that organization in that community, so that if they do have to do a layoff, you're not even on the list? And most people don't even think about that. And that's craziness. So, okay, that's kind of that's off to the races this morning. I kind of wandered off into the field, but that's really important stuff. And I did 27 years of recruiting, and I saw it over and over again where people were absolutely not paying attention to those essential fundamentals. Today, listen, it's very important. Automation and AI. We go, oh yeah, it's going to change things. It's going to change how you manage your career. You must change. If you're sitting back being very passive, stop. Unless you're ready, unless your retirement plan is go to the sidelines prematurely. And there are a bunch of people I know in healthcare and some other industries that were extraordinarily talented people, and they never, ever dreamed that they would be retired at 57 or 58 years old. Never. Wasn't in their plan. And I can tell you, some of those people are not happy campers. They're unhappy because they're struggling to kind of redefine what their value is in life. And a couple of these people came from families that were hardworking dads and unions or whatever, and they defined their value to themselves and their family and the community as the kind of job they had and working hard and being a good provider. Well, they've got great retirement plans, but they're sitting at home. They don't want to play golf all the time, and they're trying to figure out, what do I do with my life now? I don't have a real job. Don't let if working is important to you, being a good provider is important. If being a good provider is necessary, have a plan, please, because automation with all of this scanning ability is going to broaden the job pool. It's going to make it intensely competitive. If you think now in an industry like healthcare where there's been a ton of consolidation, if you think it's hard now, wait 5 years. So it's so important to have a plan and have a network. And our course is Networking 3.0. That is the latest version of how you must network. And it lays it out there. I've been a big time networker for most of my life. And now I'm marketing a company that's digital, that doesn't rely on traditional networking. So I'm having to learn new things too. And let's see. I saw your video today that dropped that dropped last night. It has been, you tell a great story. What are your thoughts on the most common job search myths? That if I sit back, I will be rewarded and I can have a good career. Or I don't really need to network. It's not going to be necessary. If I do a good job, that will be enough. Listen, those people on the sidelines did a great job. People that get laid off every week did a good job. They may not have been politically connected, or they may not have had a mission critical job, but they were doing a good job. So that's one of the big myths today. Doing a good job is important. Doing a good job and becoming indispensable is important, but it is not a guarantee. And those kinds of qualities will improve your chances of not being laid off. But if you are laid off and you don't have a plan and you don't have a sense of direction, it'll take you longer than everybody else. And let me tell you something. When we have a recession, and some of the indicators are so 100% accurate predictors of recession, including the inverted treasury curve. It just hasn't happened yet. Why? Who knows? It may not happen. God hopes it. God bless. I hope it doesn't. But if it does, how are you going to respond? And the last place you want to be is at the end of the employment line. So that's the key. I think that's the biggest myth. Should I use an objective on my resume? I've seen templates lately online, and they show an objective. First of all, a great question. The answer is no. Do not use the objective. Larry Tyler, who was a great healthcare recruiter, once told American College of Healthcare Executive Gathering, I think it was a group of military people in transition, an objective is either too broad to help you or too narrow and get you eliminated. So use a professional summary that is absolutely tied to the job summary that's online. If you're applying online, that's what you must do. And so here's something about downloading off the internet. We try to keep our information really up to date, all of our new posted information, but you're going to be able to find something on the internet that I posted, in 2006 or 2005. Some of the concepts may be accurate, some of the information may be helpful, but my God, there's been such a huge sea change 2 or 3 times since 2006. So check the dates on the information that you're looking at. Check the dates on when the templates were posted. And there's some people who are building software or putting up websites, and they're website people or they're corporate people, and they know diddly what about job search, about resumes, and so they're putting up information that can lead you astray. So if you want a free resume guide, which is up to date, which is tested with against ATS, the formatting, and is one that recruiters like, and that's been tested. I developed it when I was on the faculty of the American College of Healthcare Executives Annual Congress. I taught the interviewing course for 9 years plus in one step, and then 5 years previously. So I've got a lot of experience of working with recruiters that are within the college as members, and we sat down and said, this makes it easy. This is the kind of information we read, and we're constantly looking at that, constantly talking to recruiters to say, is this the best format? Okay, and with the stuff that you submit to ATS, it needs to be easily scanned, but the scanner doesn't care about the style and all that stuff of your formatting. Let's see, what is the difference between industry keywords and the job summary keywords and phrases? Okay, this is important because what you get when you talk to resume writers who can be very helpful to you in terms of helping you identify your talents, your hidden skills, and show you ways to, in writing, communicate your value. That's their value proposition today. The design of the resume, phooey. You can get to a job interview using a basic text resume, and it has happened before. Matter of fact, happens frequently because the computer doesn't care. And if the recruiter spits it out to the recruiter, a lot of those recruiters say, "Okay, this is somebody I need to talk to." And they'll call you and want to set up an interview. And if you used a basic text interview or plain text, that's when you say, oh, I've updated my format. That's going to be easier for you to read. So I'm going to send you the people version because you have the computer version. And most of the recruiters will kind of laugh at that because they understand. But here's the difference between industry keywords. A lot of resume writers who may not really know how things are changing and how fast they're changing, even though they may be certified. I've seen some atrocious resume from certified resume writers. Every industry has certain keywords that are fairly common. And those are great. And you need to do that. You need to do the industry keywords on your LinkedIn profile, and you need to do them on your resume. However, industry keywords are not enough if you're applying online and you have a scanner that is looking for certain keywords and phrases that relate to a specific job. So that's the difference. The resume keywords really are speaking to words that you've taken from that job summary. And we have a worksheet that will be available for free download in your career community that will help you, go through the job summary and then be sure that you're using those keywords throughout your resume. The more it's done, if you just use them at the top of the resume, that's called a keyword dump, and it doesn't give you a really good score. How many accomplishments did I use for each of my job listings on my resume? Okay, I think what the best thing to say here is parity. You don't want to have your the current job with 10 or 12 accomplishments. I know it's hard when you're so proud of your accomplishments and then have the next one have only 2. that begs the question. So use parity and try to keep them consistent. So I saw one resume had 5 for the current job, 1 for the next job, and 8 for a job that was 5 years previous. And so the question is, hey, you've been in your current job 3 years and you've only got 5 accomplishments that you're really touting, and yet years ago you've got other things that you're really proud of and touting. So look for parity and get balance. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes you may have only stayed a year. Sometimes you may have made a mistake in picking the job, and so you may only have 1 or 2 things to put, and that is what it is. But you want to try to have parity. If you've had a pretty consistent career, it's okay to have more for your first. It's okay to have maybe 4 or 5 for the second, maybe 6 or 7 for the third, and but keep it so that it's not a glaring difference. How do I? Let's see, examples of mine. How do I use examples of my successes in job interviews? You talk a lot about storytelling. So how do I do that? How do you tell stories in interviews? A story is not once upon a time. That's not the kind of story we're talking about. There's a great writer who has told some very good stories about very complex subjects. And he finds an individual and then writes a narrative, and it's almost like you're there, okay? And his name is Michael Lewis, and if you haven't read some of his books, he is like a writer. He's writing nonfiction, but it reads like you were there. It reads like you're seeing dialogue, and so yes, there is some literary license. Well, when you are in an interview, a story is memorable. People remember stories more than they remember facts and figures. So if you have a great accomplishment, just don't, and it was really a challenge and you did something really innovative, they say, what was your days in AR? Or something like that. How did you make this reduction in days in AR? That can be a story very quickly, very succinctly. So when you're going into a job, break the job down by categories, and we have a form called core and categorical interview. And each job you have strengths. Get 2 or 3 little stories, little snippets that illustrate those strengths. Write them down, plan it out, and be ready to use them in an interview. That's how you do it. That's part of our coaching package. It really makes a huge difference. A story can also be just a little transitional line. I was interviewing a candidate for a hospital up in Northeast Oregon. Really bright guy. It was a fabulous hospital, Grand Ron, in a beautiful part of Oregon with some great people. And I said, well, what are your weaknesses? Now, we asked that question to kind of get a handle on emotional intelligence. And he looked up and smiled at the camera because I used to video the interviews to show the boards before they made the selection who to bring on site. And he said, maybe we better talk to my wife first. Well, everybody had been sitting back like this. And when they did it, everybody laughed. And then you could see them leaning in. So sometimes it's a little aside like that, and that can make you seem a little human and connect you with the board. So stories help you connect. And I've never met someone who didn't have a story to tell. And so we're working on a course of how to harvest your stories. But it's really one way to do it is think about some examples of your successes. Somebody once told me, and once asked a question of me, what was the most significant change what was the most significant event that changed the trajectory of your career? That's a behavior and values question. You might not get it all the time, but you may hear it. And for me, it was I had moved from being a crime writer and investigative reporter at the Houston Post. I was a director of public relations at Herman Hospital. The hospital was struggling. We had so many things going on. And the CEO decided he wanted to get into the hospital helicopter business because he heard about Flight for Life in Denver and how that had turned that hospital around. And we were next door to the big county trauma center that was controlled the fire department ambulances. So we were dying on the vine in terms of not getting any trauma. And so we were the new medical school hospital. It was a real uphill battle. And I was going down the hallway. We had been to Denver. I thought, this is a cool program. And I didn't know, I didn't even recognize hospitals 4 out of 5 times and knew less about helicopters. I'm going down the hallway and I see my boss, and he's engaged in a very noisy, loud conversation with a neonatologist, as only a neonatologist can do when he's making the case for money. And there was some profanity and voices were raised. And just as I was about to pass them on my way to a meeting, they said, and you're going to do that effing helicopter program, and you have nobody to run it. And my boss at the time, Bill Smith, who's one of the most creative, great guys, and really was a great influence in my life, looked up, caught my eye, and said, John Self's going to do it, and he'll sink with it or swim with it. And I got to be the first director of Life Flight at Herman, which is today the largest program. Now, my contributions today, you probably couldn't even find them on a pinhead. But let me tell you, within a year, I was the national marketing director for the aircraft company. They were flying me all over the country, talking to healthcare organizations about implementing life flight programs. And in 3 years, I did 14 programs. That changed my life. It dramatically changed the trajectory. I wasn't sure if I was going to stay in healthcare. I was thinking about going back to that high-paying news business job I had. And so everybody has a story. And that one was not particularly well told this morning, but that's kind of what it was. It's a little after 8, so we've run over a bit, so we were a little bit late starting. Let's see if I can get in, see if there's any other questions that might be beneficial. I know you say all the time, don't try to predict the economy, be prepared for the economy. And that's the best advice I can give you, because let me tell you, while I'm kind of concerned about the negative elements I'm looking at, interest rates going up, oil going up, bankruptcies going up, the inverted treasury curve, all very bad signs for the future of the economy. And by the way, the stock market is not the economy. So you always talk about being job search ready. What does that mean? Well, it means, A, do you have a career plan? Do you know what you're going to do if you get laid off? Do you have targeted organizations? Do you have areas of the country that you and your family say, okay, if we can't be here, where? Okay, this is really important to do that, to put that down, because when you lose your job and there's a crisis and you're worried about finances and getting everything sorted and your kids are upset, you want to have a plan and you want everybody on the same page. It's really, really important for you to do that. Number 2, you got to have your resume. It needs to be up to date. And now this is going to be kind of a generic resume. It's going to be the resume format using our resume guide that you then can update and easily for each job you apply for online. Even if you're applying to a recruiter and you see their summary of the job, you need to update your resume, because that's going to go to the client if you're selected. And that sometimes can have a big influence. Remember, when you're dealing with a recruiter and not an applicant tracking system and not online, when you're dealing with a recruiter, that's your first interview. The resume is your first interview. You need to have your networking up to date. If you are not networking every week, every month, every quarter, shame on you. You're going to get burned. Not if. In the past, it might get burned. In the future, you will get burned. Why? Because a lot of the best jobs are never posted. So they are done by referrals. So you need to build relationships with a diverse group of companies. They may be all in the same industry, do the same thing, but not just 1 or 2 companies and that's it. You need to have 5, 6, or 8 or 10 companies where you've built relationships, you understand them, you've been tracking them, so that if you do lose your job, and you have a targeted company, you've already got networks in place that can help refer you for any jobs that are created or any jobs that are not posted. Or even if you have to apply online to a job, they can come in and say, you need to talk to this person. I know them. We've been connected for a while. See them all the time at industry meetings. We have coffee. Really a bright person. They'd be a good fit for our organization. That can make a huge difference. Would you rather have somebody speaking on your behalf, or would you rather rely on the computer? The next thing you need to do is you need to have your financial plan in place. What can we cut back on so you can avoid dipping into your retirement plan? You should have 5 to 6 months in a rainy day fund. I know if you're just getting started out, if you're building a family, if you want to buy a house, you've got multiple priorities, but try to put some money back every month for a rainy day fund if you hit tough times with your career. So those are just a few examples about being job search ready. If you're sitting back and they get that tap on the shoulder and you haven't thought about this, you haven't planned for this, you don't have your everything in place, you don't understand the new rules of the job search market, then the chances of you finding a job quickly are very, very small. You're not probably looking at 6 months to a year. So then you got to figure out, how do I take care of my family? How do I pay the rent, the light bill, provide food? If you're a lower level person or have been living month to month, how do I do that without a job? Because unemployment in some states ain't too great. So I think that's kind of what job search ready is. I hope this information's been helpful. Thank you all for joining us today. We'll be back next Thursday. I'll have more information on your career community. And again, for our current members who are current clients, you will be a member. You get a free membership for a year. And we are really committed to building a strong community and helping people with their careers. Our YouTube page is Guiding Your Career, and we want you to think of that as a place. If you have a question, there's probably a video there. On my website, under the blog tab, the current video blog of the day is there. Also, there are more than, I think, almost 1,000 written blogs and video blogs, more than 1,000, that you can search by subject matter. So that's at johngself.com. Click the blog tab. So we've got a wealth of information. We're going to be organizing that and sorting that so that it adds greater value in your career. Career management is something that's just going to be a part of your life. It's a part of what you're going to, your routine. And so your career community is designed to be an affordable resource where you can go and sit in on office hours and listen to what other people are doing. You don't have to ask questions. You can just be there and listen. It's going to take a while to build all this up, but I'm really, really excited about it. So thank you for joining us today on LinkedIn and YouTube. I will be on Instagram at noon, Facebook at 4, and Crazy Town TikTok at 8 o'clock. And people say, TikTok. Last Thursday night, I had 2,800 people on the stream asking some really great questions. So if you have a TikTok account, you might join us at 8 o'clock, 8 p.m. Central Time tonight on TikTok, because it's a wild and woolly show. I wore a bow tie the first time I did one, and I got about 15 minutes of ribbing of being Orville Redenbacher or Colonel Sanders. Hey, I've got gray hair. I've earned every one of them, and that gray hair, if you're a millennial or a Gen Z, let me tell you this. I have a lot of knowledge. I've done tons of interviews. I've done tons of don't know how the process works today. I know how the technology, most of the technology works today. So, don't discount the age, whether it's me or anybody else, because there's a lot of experience, and that experience can and will benefit you. So thank you guys for joining us today. Take care, and I'll see you next week.